Um,
I did not mean to do that.
You did that.
Oh,
Was that
thanks,
not
Tom. You
appropriate?
scared
I'm not
me.
sure.
Not to worry.
Okay.
It is 4:16 p.m. and I declare this meeting of the City of Bremerton Public Works Committee open. For the foreseeable future, we will still be in 2020 having endless Zoom meetings remotely. Pretty sure that's the official script. The first item on the agenda is contract award for Well 9 site development. Presenter, Mr. William Davis. Take it away, Bill.
All right, good evening, good afternoon, Councilman Mottler. I wanted to talk about a contract that we have. It's with, we're developing a site. It's at the north end of our water system. And historically, we've had a well there called Well 9. And I'd like to share my screen with you.
Video's kind of cutting in and out, Bill. You got to come closer and speak up, please.
We'll get closer here.
Foreman voice.
Can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay. So this is you can see West Bremerton here in East Bremerton. And at the very north end of our water system is Well 9. This is getting up near Highway 303 there up into Silverdale. So that's the north end of our water system where we have this well. And this well failed back in 2010 and we took it out of service. So we have a time limit where we have to re-drill a well. We have certain water rights at locations. So we are currently the output of the well is 285 gallons per minute. It was drilled back in 1977 to a depth of about 970 feet. And we're going to put a new well on that site. We hired Murray Smith to do the site development for it. And we're actually going to do it we're going to do the work there in two contracts, the construction work. One is to just develop the site and prepare it for the heavy equipment. It takes significant equipment to drill a well. There's a rig, and then they need access to their tools, and they need bins to put the mud that they're pulling up out of the well. So first we're going to develop the site and create a nice flat area. Let me stop sharing my screen. A second here. Stop share. So the first contract will be to develop the site, to make it flat, to put the equipment. And so we've got a contract that we're advertising currently through the. We sent out a request for proposals to contractors on the using the MRSC small works roster and for development of the site. So that's what this current contract is about. And then we're going to do a follow-on contract to actually drill the well. And I'll talk about that at a later time in a future Public Works Committee meeting.
So the site development is punching in a road, creating a spot to drill the well, spot for all the equipment, those sorts of things, Bill?
Right? Correct.
Okay.
It's a challenging site to develop. It's very steep. It's heavily wooded.
There's some block walls that get built also.
Yep.
Those are the grades, yeah. And I don't know if you noticed, but our water system is really expansive. I mean, it goes all the way, up to what most people consider Silverdale. So,
So the purpose of this is to retain our water rights?
Yes. We have a current water right there of 285 gallons per minute. This will, we'd like to expand that water right, like add an extra 1,000 gallons per minute if we can. We don't know if we can get that much output out of the well. We'll do as much as we can. So we have a deadline by early next year at the end of January to get this well drilled. So we are doing these two contracts to get to expand our water rate out there. To drill a new well.
To hold on to it. I'm sorry, Director Nucky, please go ahead.
I was just going to say it's important too, because most of our source water is in the south end. We've got the Anderson Creek well field over in Southwest Bremerton, and then we've got the obviously our surface supply that comes in. So most of our sources from the south, And it is good to have multiple sources, especially on the north end, so that, you know, during hot weather, when there's a lot of demand on the system, we've got a source up from the north end. So
I wonder if it would be helpful if I showed them quickly on the GIS where our different well fields are. That might
I would be
interesting.
fascinated.
Same.
Okay.
And while you're loading that, can I just clarify, this will come to council for a contract to start getting bids, or you're doing the bids and then you'll come to council with a contract for the lowest bidder?
We're currently obtaining quotes right now. We sent out the proposal,
Okay.
and so we're currently obtaining quotes right now, and the goal is to bring it to council. I think it's sometime in the middle of August.
Okay.
So
Bill, do you have an estimated cost for this? Like a small works roster, so it's under 350, right?
it is. It's right around $300,000.
Okay.
Okay. I struggle a little bit more with Zoom here than I do with Teams. Okay. Here's the Bremerton water system here. You can see down here on the south end here, these orange stars. This is our Anderson Creek well field here. This is where the bulk of our water comes from, this well field right here. Then we have some additional wells out here at the golf course. We've got one right here. And then in East Bremerton.
Well, you might point out the reservoir too.
yeah, show them the dam.
Okay.
Show us the dam.
Okay. Right up here. This is the Union River Reservoir right here. And then that's the dam right there. You can see our dam. Zoom in right there.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, our surface supply is about 2/3 of our water supply. It comes down the Union River through our intake facility right here, and then through this pipeline. It gets treated here at the UV chlorination.
Yeah,
facility.
zoom out, Bill, because it's kind of hard to track with your. There you go.
So from the dam through here to our treatment facility here, and then into town.
But you
And
can
then-
the wells we have on the south end, like we have 4 wells around actually 5 around the golf course there. We have our Union River Reservoir. We have the Anderson Creek facility over there to the right. And then there's just a few in East Bremerton, and that one that's shown kind of by Jarstead Park between the other 2 clusters is actually not an active well right now. No, to the right, Bill, the one to the right. Yeah.
Right there, right?
So having more source in East Bremerton that's remote, it helps with chlorination. It helps with if we have a problem with the main crossing a bridge or crossing the Narrows, then we've got the ability to serve up there without going to another district. So increasing our source capacity in East Bremerton is an important thing for us to accomplish.
Can I ask a real quick question? And if it turns out to be complicated, I'll drop it. Which is, I know we sell some of our water thank you, Bill. Is it okay if we just use first names at this meeting? Is everybody okay with that? I was gonna
Yeah.
save a lot of time.
It was me.
Okay. Are we locked into long-term contracts on that? If, for example, some disaster should happen? And if that's a complicated question, I will drop it.
Well, I'll take a stab at it, Bill. We have a contract with Port Orchard that's a long-term contract. We have actually 2. One is for just wholesale sale of water at cost, and they don't use it. It's kind of intermittent use. They don't want to buy our water if they can provide their own water. It's not really a great business model for Port Orchard. And then we have another agreement where we're actually purchasing a reservoir and a transmission main through the sale of water. Which is a really good deal for us because for about $800,000 in water sales, we're getting about $4 or $5 million worth of infrastructure that we would have had to build. So that's good. The other contracts we have are like the shipyard isn't really a contract, they're a customer, but it's a big dedicated contract for the shipyard and for Jackson Park. And then other than that, I don't think we really have dedicated sales like on any big wholesale contract, unless Tom, can you think of something I'm missing?
We've got Energize though, right? We've got Energize for emergency
A few.
source,
Yeah.
but yeah. No, and just that agreement with Port Orchard for the purchase of the infrastructure. I think actually it was Ned's idea. It was a great idea. And it's saving us from immediately, constructing infrastructure in that part of the city where we really don't have reservoirs. So
I think it sounds like a great deal. 800 grand for a reservoir.
reservoir, pump station, there's mains, it's extensive.
Well done, you. Okay. Bill, thank you a gazillion times for that display. Is there anything more on well 9 that we should be discussing?
I don't
Going
think so.
once, going
I
twice?
just think it's important for us to say that it's critical we get it done like in January, end of January next year. So we're pushing to try to get this contract done as quickly as we can so we can get the well driller in and we have it all done before our deadline. I don't know what happens if we don't meet our deadline.
Otherwise, we're limited to the 285 gallons per minute.
Okay.
Jeff, you had a question? Okay.
No, all good to me. Perfect.
Okay. Yeah, I think everyone on council is going to be like wells that supply water. We like that. Okay, then I'm gonna move us on to the supplemental agreement number 4 with Skillings Inc. for design of the Washington and 11th roundabout project. Shane Weber presents. Please take it away, Shane.
Hi there. Thank you very much. I wish I had better show and tell for you guys tonight like Bill did. So you get the B team here for this one. Sorry about that. So this one is amendment 4 of a contract that we currently have with Skillings Inc., who's the engineer that's designing the Washington 11th roundabout project, which is putting in a roundabout at the west end of the Manette Bridge and reconstructing Washington from that point up to Pacific. And council originally approved the contract in November of 2019, and we've had 3 contract amendments since then. The first contract amendment was a no-cost change that was basically shifting the surveyor from a sub-consultant surveyor to Skillings because they're having problems with their surveyor. So that wasn't something that went to council. We had a second amendment that was adding scope to the project to replace lower sidewalks on a portion of Washington that actually extends north of the mainline Washington around the curve to repair sidewalks there that have been broken up over the years, and then also some utility projects went in through there. So it's to basically replace that sidewalk segment. And also as part of that amendment, we identified 2 water main crossings on Washington and 11th that need to be upgraded. So we added scope in there for that. The third supplement was to we had a lot of concerns last year by the residents along the project. They're really concerned about parking. And so we went through a concept process and presented options to the neighborhood there to try to alleviate their concerns. But what that resulted in is us having to redesign a portion of the project to help mitigate their concerns. And so the third amendment was adding scope to redesign the project, and it also put in scope into the project to rebuild the wall that we have an existing wall on the west side of Washington 11th. So it's to rebuild a portion of that wall as well. And so this amendment, this fourth amendment, it's in the amount of $167,000. And what this does is it adds some scope to the project for landscaping design, as well as to finish us up with design and provide bid and award support and construction support to carry us through, to allow Skillings to provide engineering support during construction. And that's what this amendment is for. And I anticipate this is probably going to be the final amendment to carry us through the end of the project for Skillings to basically finish up the project and their support for us. So that's what this one is for. And I anticipate going to council on the 27th of this month for a study session with the second session being in August. I think it's August 3rd, that is. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Jeff, do you have questions?
Yeah, so it'd also be great to get this wrapped up. And again, I gotta say a lot of kudos again for all the resident feedback. I think y'all came up with an excellent plan that is extremely defensible, and you guys did a nice job there. So kudos again. So the landscaping was a result of the changes from the resident feedback.
It was a result of there being a need for a boulevard section through there, and we just didn't have the street trees in the design, and that's what this component would address, is the street trees component of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the engineering support was, I guess, not part of the original contract, or I was a little confused on why that one's being added at the end.
Yeah, we we had well, Ned will get me on this, I think, a little bit, because he's talked to me about this before. But so when we have federal aid projects, we found it's cleaner in the past to go to council originally for the design component of the project, because we have design funding that we need to obligate through the state for Fed aid projects. And then to come with an amendment once we go to construction and take care of the construction support aspect of it, because it's a different funding pot for us for Fed aid projects. But in talking with Ned, we talked about it, and I think what we're going to try to do from here on out is include everything in the original contract. That way we don't have to go to council twice to include this advertisement support, construction support that we know we're going to have, and we're going to know we're going to need. But it just, and we can separate out the funding part of it within the contract instead of, going to council and separating it that way. So I think it's just a cleaner way of doing it. And Ned helped me see the light on this one. So
Cool. Yeah, so routine, just possibly change the process. Okay.
Right. I'm surprised Ned didn't say anything on that.
Well, I was muted, but what I was gonna say was it's just like more contract amendments. It just looks like, well, why do you do another one? Why don't you get this right up front? If we know we have scope and we know we're gonna hire them, and we can bundle it all into one original contract, the contract amendment is actually truly a scope and cost change, and not just something we waited to bring to council again. And so I would really like to come once, bring everything we know about, and when there's an amendment, either the mayor signing it or bringing it to council as appropriate, but it's because it's an actual unanticipated contract change.
That's exactly what I had in my head too, is every time I see an amendment is, okay, what changed about the scope? What's different? Why do we need to justify this change in possible additional cost? So,
and this one is both. This one is added scope, and this is a known scope, both, right? So then we have to explain.
Yeah, right.
Cool.
So,
and what was the dollar change amount? Sorry, I missed that.
It was $167,000, $369.09.
Okay. So 67. So is it still, and we'll probably talk about this a couple times, I guess still in the scope of the original cost, or?
It's budgeted. It's a budgeted amount.
Okay.
So there's no budget that's needed for it.
And I guess we'll talk about this probably more 11th and Perry, but is there any need to think about changing this project before it goes out to bid, or if we just put it out to bid and see what comes in? If they're all high, take it from there.
We're taking a look at all of our projects right now, because we've had different market conditions that are driving up costs on projects, and so I'm actually having our consultant give me another estimate for this tomorrow, so that we can try to get ahead of what we're seeing for added costs and additional costs. So we're trying to get ahead of it right now is what we're trying to do. And once we get the costs, then we'll have to figure out what, if the costs are going to be coming in higher, how to deal with that.
Okay, no, sounds great.
Yeah, yeah. But at this point, there's no change in scope anticipated at this point.
Right.
Perfect.
Jeff, that's all your questions? Okay. Okay, really happy that it's you guys, not me, that has to figure out how to redo that wall and to deal with the people who will be trying to drive along the road supported by that wall. Really happy to pass that one over. Can you give me you said that the Boulevard section is north of the Manette Bridge, is that correct? Along Washington Avenue?
It's actually, it's a community boulevard. And if you look at the section that's to the south of the bridge, that is kind of sort of the section that includes, that is the community boulevard section that we're recreating to the north of the bridge. So, so yeah, that's a community boulevard section that we're looking at.
All the way down to the unending construction project?
Yeah, I think I can't remember what the southern limits was for. I think it was at Burwell, I think. But yeah, you try to in our transportation plan, our sub area plan, they have a community boulevard all the way up to Pacific, and that's what the vision is for that street.
That sounds great. Can you just tell me who is overseeing the selection of those trees?
There's a landscape architect that HBB that is proposed on this project, and they're a pretty well-known landscape architect, and they know what they're doing in terms of street trees. And I guess the other thing I'd have to say on that is that we're gonna have to look at what's in there right now and seeing about how we can be consistent. And we also have a street tree list in our standard engineering standards that we need to comply with as well, that identifies street trees that are good, that are applicable for streetscapes, where you typically have issues with root zones on street trees, because they, if it's the wrong tree, they tend to heave sidewalks and cause infrastructure damage years after they're put in. So
Yes.
that's
I've read that. And one of the things I do like about it is it does contain a few native trees.
oh yeah.
Yeah, not many, but a few. So I am hopeful, just giving you guys a heads up so that you don't think I'm like, jumping on you. I am going to provide input that I think drought tolerant native trees would be an excellent selection for this, because that's it, just letting you know.
Hey,
Okay.
I'm one of
the
7.
street tree, didn't the street tree list come out of the tree committee with Malenka?
Yeah.
So I
And
think we want to,
Yeah, it's a pretty extensive list of trees that went through that
Mhm.
process. And then is the landscape architect selecting from the approved list of trees? I believe they.
Yeah, they would need to select from that approved list
Yeah.
of trees. So
I know, I'm just
Yeah.
saying, so that, you don't go, oh my gosh, she was right there, why didn't she tell us? That's all.
duly noted your comment. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Is there anything, I'm sorry. Was someone speaking? Is there anything further on this supplemental agreement, which will be coming to council 27 July and then again on 3rd August?
No. Mm-mm.
Excellent. We are moving on to capital projects review, happening right now in July, beginning with stormwater. Ms. Chance is going to talk to us about Kitsap Lake algae control and aquatic vegetation management plan implementation. Budget for 2022 is $175K for contracted services.
Wow, that was a mouthful.
You have the floor.
Well, good evening, Councilor Muckler and Coughlin. So Kitsap Lake, stormwater treatments, or not stormwater treatment, what am I talking about? You got me all fuddled. The algae control, Foslock treatment, and vegetation harvesting. So I think, as everyone knows, we did the first treatment at the end of May on the 25th through the 27th. And we treated the entire lake for free reactive phosphorus to help mitigate the algae blooms. And we did a pretty good job. We nailed it. And we used less material or less Foslock product than we have been. And it's been holding up pretty well. We go out about every 2 weeks to collect samples to make sure everything is holding together. The lake is looking good. The algae species are, staying there. We're not growing cyanobacteria or blue-green algae. Actually, the species has reduced in quantities over the last couple of years, which is perfect. And we are looking at doing the next treatment next week. So we're getting materials delivered this Friday. So Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week, we'll be doing the second treatment in the deep portion of the lake. And that's where it's 20 feet or deeper. And what that does is it removes the free reactive phosphorus that has been released through the anaerobic process that occurs when you get the lake stratified. Water below that, the stratified layer becomes anoxic, so oxygen level goes really low, and the sediment tends to release free reactive phosphorus that is easily used to feed algae blooms. So the Foslock application this time is targeting that particular layer of the lake. And then we're also going to be putting in herbicide to the yellow flag iris along the shoreline to try to eradicate them once again. We just keep picking away at it, and it's been getting rid of the yellow flag iris pretty consistently over the last couple of years. Pretty tough species, so it's going away a little at a time. And we use a product called ClearCast, which is relatively safe for all other species, but we don't want to overspray onto yards or anything like that. We actually had a dog run through one of the applications year before last. And, it doesn't hurt the animal. You just have to wash it off. And then what we have planned is the harvesting for mid-August, which is really unfortunate, but the harvester was not able to get up here before then. So we lose a good part of the summer with vegetation floating around the park. And we probably have to get out there and remove that by hand, just to provide some enjoyment area for lakefront users or the park users. One of the things I've been doing is applying something called muck away, which it's a bacteria that eats the muck on the bottom of the lake. And you can see the shoreline at the park is actually really nice. You can see the gravels, the muck is gone. And we're permitted to use that. So it's all covered in our permit. But that's a really good product and has been doing incredible stuff for cleaning up the bottom of the swimming area in the park. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Jeff, I have many questions. What are yours?
I got nothing intelligent. That was excellent. So you take it away.
Chance, you really revel in this lacustrine detail, don't you? This project is so wonderful. Really have nothing to say except how often do you get a story that's just good news top to bottom?
Exactly.
That was actually all of my questions.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think
Okay.
the project turned out well.
Just one thing on this. I mean, we see this as a long-term. We don't have an end date on this program, right? We see this as a long-term benefit and a long-term program for the city. But like Chance said, the really cool thing is that we've got improving water quality using less product, which is great. So, yeah.
Plus I'm sorry, Tom. Please go.
That's it.
Plus you're doing what, 4 stormwater retrofits at various places around the lake
Yep.
to reduce nitrogen inputs at, what's Ned's phrase, at source.
That's correct. And Gunner's going to tell you all about that in his rundown.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Berthune. Moving on to the Kitsap Lake Stormwater Treatment Retrofit Design Project at 200K. Gunnar Fredrickson, take it away, Gunnar.
Okay. Good evening, council and audience. And if it's okay, what I'll do is I'll just kind of rattle through my projects and then have questions at the end. For the Kitsap Lake Stormwater retrofit design project. That is a design project only. We have a DOE grant. We're going to go to a 90% design, as mentioned, on the 4 sites, 3 of which are in Dockside. The 4th is over on Kitsap Way by the Garage Bar and Grill. We turned all the paperwork into DOE, just got comments back, responded back to their comments. We are doing an amendment on that grant loan to be able to have it extended. It was supposed to expire actually end of June. But we didn't really get the chance to start working on this thing until December last year because of some delays with COVID and getting the application signed and getting the agreement through DOE. But we will be wrapping this up more than likely by October or so. And we do have a 90% design already that we are currently working on wrapping up with them. Ostrich Bay Creek Fish culvert projects. As you're aware, Kitsap Way is one of those culvert projects. That project is now in closeout. We have physical completion and we're just gonna finish it up and be done. Both Price and Brentwood projects are currently active. Contractor started out there June 20th. We have already poured footings on Price Road. We will be pouring walls for it on Monday. Defishing was done yesterday. Out of the 2 locations, we got 2 sculpin down by Brentwood. And we're expecting we will see fish there just because it's so close to the intertidal. Project is continuing and we should be completed with both culverts in place by this December. Pine Basin Watershed Storm System Improvements awarded the contract. Pre-construction meeting was last week. The notice to proceed was given. Contractor submitted a request for a material suspension until September 6th. They're having a problem getting rebar and finding some of the supplies for the project. So we have given them a material suspension, but we are expecting them to be out there right after Labor Day and starting construction. First thing on the list will be construction of the in-stream work. And the only other extra thing there is we will probably look to do a consultant amendment on that contract. It will be number 3, and it's due to the issues that we had a good portion of it with DOE and getting the permitting done on this project. We had an extended permit time. Francis Drive Outfall project, that is kind of a sleeper right now. We haven't actually activated on that one. We're going to be picking a consultant here in the next couple of months and then bringing you a contract. But that's basically to help with a road end out there on Kitsap Lake. We've got by our design report, it's a problem with flooding and so forth. And we do see some issues with the neighbors out there. So we want to get that fixed. Probably look to design and then construction next year sometime. And then the last one, Schley Canyon, Wheaton Way, culvert repair. Just went out and walked that with Michelle Philly in our office to see if we can incorporate that into our 2023 CIP project, or if it should be a standalone project. We've got the HPA in, hopefully we'll get it. We did get the MOA signed and executed and everything is done there. And we'll also be selecting, and one of the projects that'll probably be coming on the list is the Anderson Creek Dam removals, which we will also be looking for a consultant this fall on. We expect permitting on that will actually take probably about a year. So we're probably looking at a 2024 construction there. And that's it. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions on any of those.
Jeff, why don't you go first?
Sure. First one, I forget what PWTF, what agency is that?
Public Works Trust Fund Board. That is an actual loan.
Okay,
And it's 1.67%. So it's a really good loan.
nice. Oh, that'd be nice.
Yep.
Okay, thanks. And then the snuck in the Ostrich Bay stormwater in there with the fish culverts, right? I just want to make sure I didn't miss
Correct.
that.
Both Ostrich Bay, the Fish Culvert Passage and Pine Road Basin are both Public Works Trust Fund loans.
Okay. I just want to make sure we didn't miss item 4 there on the stormwater retrofit for Ostrich Bay Creek. Sorry if that was just me.
Price and Brentwood.
Price and Brentwood. Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, those are the 2 active,
Right.
the last 2 culverts we've got on that project list.
We have an umbrella title for that project, and then we have 3 project names that have nothing to do with the umbrella title.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
Is that
By
for
the
clarity?
confusion. No, I don't know why we did that. We should never do that again.
Hey,
Well, it's the same as Pine Road Basin too, right? We've got a project that's named and we actually had to eliminate the component out of the project that actually is in Pine Road Basin. The rest of it is in Stevenson Creek Basin.
Right.
So, yeah.
Keep us on our toes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nope, that's it. Sounds like nothing imminent coming to council on any of those, and everything's on track, except the rebar. Okay.
Everything's on track except for maybe the consultant contract amendment for Pine Road Basin.
Right, okay. That's all I got.
okay. Just a real quick question, and again, if this turns out to be complicated, let's just keep moving. But I know when you guys were first talking about Kitsap Lake, first proposing this, that there was a question, and it's come up a couple more times, about the Navy's portion of Kitsap Lake. Sorry, something in my throat. Has Public Works come to a understanding with the Navy and acquired full and grateful cooperation?
Chances turned his
No.
video on, and it's not really associated with any of Gunner's projects specifically, but
Sorry.
it's related to Lake District, lake management. So Chance, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, it's Camp McKean is the park that the Navy has on the lake. And they've been unresponsive. I've talked to their recreation coordination person, asked them for permission. And I think honestly, it probably takes an act of Congress to get approval to do anything, or from the Pentagon. And their chain of command is really difficult to work with. And I haven't got permission to use our herbicide over on the iris in their part. So we haven't touched their area because it's, Navy property.
Thank you. Okay,
It's unfortunate.
at best. I have no further questions. Gunner, thank you for an amazing presentation, extremely rapid. I'm sorry you have to come back and only one time for a really brief presentation later, but there you have it. I am not the maker of agendas. Thank you, and we will now move on to water utilities. Cami Apfelbeck on utility and forest land management plan update.
I think I'm pinch hitting for Cami on this one.
I think so. I don't see
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay,
So
Tom Nucky appearing as Cami
Yeah.
Apfelbeck.
So we really haven't made any progress on this. We will council's considering tomorrow the hiring or the upgrade of a position for a forestry manager, and assuming that goes through and is approved, we're set to begin advertising immediately. And as soon as we get a new forestry manager on board, then that person will start working on this comprehensive plan update. There's no timeline associated with this. It's us just, recognizing a need for an update and trying to move that forward. We did get an agenda that was put together, not an agenda, an outline that was put together by Malenka Hawkins Bates, assisted us with that, but we're kind of at all stop on that one right now.
Okay, thank you. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 different items presented by Bill Davis. Bill,
Hey, sorry, Anna, can I just ask real quick on that
oh,
one?
I'm so sorry, my
No,
bad.
you're good. No worries. And if it's okay with you, should I just plan on jumping in afterwards, just to streamline?
That'd be great.
Okay, cool, good deal. Sorry, what was I gonna say on that one? Oh, yeah, so is there any tie-in at all to the 2044 comprehensive plan working next year, or is it really just totally separate?
It'll be referenced in, and so it's a separate standalone document that will be likely be referenced in.
Okay,
Actually, we'll have I've got to think that we'll have this utility lands comprehensive plan done, by the end of 23. I would hope.
Oh,
It,
okay,
honestly, I
good.
shouldn't say that. It depends on how successful we are in hiring a forestry manager. But assuming that we're able to get somebody on board fairly quickly, then I'm hopeful that we'll have the comp plan done, the utility lands comprehensive plan done ahead of the city comprehensive plan.
Okay, that makes sense. Won't hold you to the date, but good to know.
Yep.
All right, that was the only question. Thanks.
But whenever it's done, it can be incorporated by reference, yeah?
Yeah, it'll be referenced in regardless of the status of it. So
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so Bill, would you like to follow the way of Gunnar and just like rattle through all of these at your own pace?
Sure.
And we'll ask
Yep,
you questions at the end.
Sure.
Thank you.
The first one that's listed is the water distribution main improvements. And these are small projects that are done by city staff where we identify, old mains, galvanized mains, or ones that were with restricted fire flow because of their size. And so cities will design these in-house, and then city staff, city operations staff will go out and construct these as they're able to. So we have several of these that are identified, and we'll work with them. We'll work on them as needed. So there's not much to this. We don't hire a contractor for it. And then pump station 14 relocation. This is a project to update that pump station. It's located in a ravine next to the YMCA, below the YMCA, off of Wheaton Way. So it's an older pump station, and we're going to be moving it over more directly off of Wheaton Way, below the Y, in a much more accessible location, upgraded pumps and generators. It'll also be more, it's going to have it's going to be along that corridor, that bridge to bridge corridor that connects the Manette and the Warren Avenue bridges. And it's going to have a public bathroom there to serve the public. So that was a project that sat for a long time, or at least about a year and a half, while we negotiated property issues with National Park Service. And it's going again. We're completing the design. We'll go out for construction in the fall. Well 9 abandonment and redevelopment. That's the contract that I just discussed, that we've split up into 2 separate contracts to do site development, to prepare for drilling, and then there'll be a separate contract coming up to do the actual drilling. Well 7 replacement is over in that Anderson Creek well field, that large well field that we have in south. That's looks like it's almost in Port Orchard. And that well, we drilled it. We actually redeveloped it a couple of years ago, and it subsequently failed. So we are re-drilling that well. And our hydrogeologist has made suggestions about where to put that well. And we are in the process of designing it. And we're actually going to drill it by the end of this year, the new well there. Well 21, 22 completion. Those are wells that have already been drilled. One is located at Silverdale Mobile Home Estates. The other one is located out at West Belfair Valley Highway. We basically have to connect those wells to our water system. So, but the wells have already been drilled.
And they need a water right that's approved.
Correct. So those are the ones that I'm talking about, that I've talked about.
Only question I got is on the, number 3 there near the YMCA, the relocation. Just triggered a question in my head with the public bathrooms. Does Public Works maintain those, or is that under Parks, or like how does the long-term maintenance for those work?
Ned, go ahead.
That's a feature that supports the Parks Department, and it'll be like a Parks bathroom to maintain. We're also including like some mechanical for irrigation for the parks to have. So if they do landscaping or something around there, and there, there's plans for that lower area adjacent to Lower Wheaton Way. So the bathroom and the mechanical room are set up to like support parks to provide service down in that area.
Okay, very cool.
Real similar to the restroom that's down on the entrance to the boardwalk. It's the same thing. That restroom is right on top of a pump station, a sewer pump station. So similar to that model.
Okay, I didn't know that was why that one was there too. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that's because that's a great one down there for all the events and everybody else. Okay, great. That'll be a nice addition to the Bridge. That's it for me.
So,
Okay. I'm curious about the negotiations with the National Park Service. Why was there negotiation with them?
National Park Service, that land that's there, prior to the city owning that land, it was owned by the federal government. So there were covenants associated with that land over there's certain uses of that land, like park related uses.
recreational.
Recreational. So we were gonna, using it for a pump station required special approval. So it took a long time. It took over a year and a half a lot of this occurred during COVID. So we had a meeting earlier this year where we were speaking with National Park Service staff, both on East Coast and West Coast, and their attorneys. And
We had to convince them basically that it was an appropriate use on the site. And so the mechanical room, the bathroom supporting bridge to bridge, supporting the other park uses, the parking we're providing, and those other amenities were our sales pitch for, like, hey, it's a great location hydraulically in the water system. And it's easy to get to. If you go to the other pump station, you can hardly get to it, right? So that was good for us. And it was like the land is available, it's not encumbered, although it was encumbered. And as we moved through, getting approval from National Park Service proved a lot more difficult and took a lot longer than we really anticipated it would. Although, in fairness, Jeff Elevato warned me. So,
Aren't covenants fun? I think they're really like untangling fishing line in the dark.
yeah. We got there though. I mean, there was a time when it looked like we had this pump station to design and they weren't going to approve it, but we ended up getting the negotiation completed successfully. So that was pretty good.
yeah, we were considering looking at alternative sites at one point.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. I think you should hire a venue and get a band.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay, since there's just you and me, Jeff, I'm gonna assume that all the rest of you at Public Works have heard this a couple of times, maybe? Once or twice? Okay, fair enough. Then we will move on. Katie Ketterer, do you want to adopt the way of Gunner and just roll through these next 3 items? And we'll ask questions at the end. But we cannot hear a word that you are saying.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Just barely.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, I'll speak up. Gotta get my notes. Okay, Reservoir 4 site improvements. The site work, including the timber cut and the landscaping, is all complete. The physical security improvements are complete, including the fence. The remaining tasks are just related to bringing that security system online, and we expect that to happen here pretty soon. So hopefully at our next review of projects, I'll be telling you that this is closing out and taking it off the list. Olympus Neighborhood Park Exploration. We received some community requests for the open space that is on Olympus Drive at 3027 Olympus Drive to add some formal park features. So we're exploring the scope of that work and seeing what we might be able to add that would be appropriate, considering that it's water utility property and that we don't know what the future uses of that property might need to be. Next project is the Oyster Bay Public Works facility expansion. This project Facilities is working on a few small projects related to this work. And we're developing a long range plan for expanding the Public Works facility out over the next into the future. We took a look at the project, but determined that for right now there are some stormwater constraints on the property. So we'll wait until those constraints can be dealt with before we move forward with the major expansion.
So no real change on the Oyster Bay facility expansion.
Right.
Jeff, over to you. Beauty before
Yeah,
age.
the only one was the Olympus Neighborhood Park. In the scope, is it, if I'm trying to remember if I got the right area, is a dog park being considered as one of the possible options to your knowledge?
We have talked about a dog park. We'd have to determine if that's really appropriate, considering that it's water utility land and the uses of that property.
Okay. Yeah, I remember at some point I spoke with Jeff Elavato on some of the possible locations for a dog park, and I just couldn't remember if that was one of the ones he was thinking of. But I know definitely folks in the Manette area and kind of the East Bremerton are looking for a spot to have one. So just figure I'd throw that out there. Otherwise, everything looks good. Thank you.
So the, sorry. The Olympus Neighborhood Park, that area, that can't possibly be used for housing. It's wholly incompatible with its use as water utility property. That's a question.
You know, that it'd have to be sold if it was going to be used for housing, and that hasn't been considered at this point. We've got actually, you'd be surprised, we got a reservoir out in the middle of an area that looks like a big playground. So you can't put housing on that. So it's there's encumbrances there that you don't really notice. So.
Okay, well, that's why I figured I'd ask.
Mm-hmm.
I love the long saga of Reservoir 4. Each time it comes up, I'm impressed all over again. Thank you very much for your presentation, and I'm sorry that you two have to come back for a single isolated thing, but that's what happens when you do many things. Okay. So moving on to utilities and wastewater, this is all Bill Davis all the time, starting from OB2 to OB1 beach main replacement construction, a CWSRF loan of 7 million. And I'm just going to forestall Jeff here and go, what's CWSRF?
Clean Water State Revolving Fund. Those are the loans we get from Department of Ecology to fund our projects.
Okay.
So you know, as PWTF was mentioned earlier, that's similar type of mechanism.
Okay.
So,
I'm going to mute myself, get out of your way, and let you carry on.
Hey, Bill, just one quick thing about funding. So typically for the utility projects, we're able to secure some loan funding, almost never grant funding. But for the transportation projects, it's just the opposite. It's grant funding for the transportation. So just kind of a FYI.
Grants do not like maintenance. They just don't like it at all. You know, they like new stuff that starts out from scratch.
okay, jumping into this. So OB2 to OB1 beach main replacement, that's the project that's putting in the grinder pump systems along Shorewood Drive and Kitsap Way.
Bill, you guys speak up, you're cutting out.
Oh, okay. So that's the project that's installing the grinder pumps along Shorewood Drive and Kitsap Way. All the residential grinder pumps have been installed. We're now completing the commercial grinder pumps at a condominium, a hotel, a restaurant, and down at the end of West Lawn Place. So those should be completed, anticipated early August. And then we're going to start working on the beach in order to convert the main that it previously discharged to, all these upland houses, into a force main. So cutting and capping connections to the beach main. So anticipated that project should be completed within the next 2 months. So, the next project, I'm gonna let Ned address this. He can speak to this project better than I can, the PSIC project.
Yeah, so this is right now, the phase that we're in is we have also hired Kennedy Jenks. And council approved a contract to hire them to update our general sewer plans so that we can line up with the idea that Mason County is, they're planning for Mason County also, but to change our comp plan from an on-site MBR inside city limits to directing wastewater flow to the existing MBR plant that Mason County owns and operates. So we're basically doing the comp planning effort just to modify our comp plan and send that to Ecology for review. So we've just started that process. That's where we are on that.
The next project is decommissioned beach sewer Manette. That is also a CWSRF funded project. We have a $2.3 million loan for that, and that's similar in scope as the OB2 to OB1 project, but it's smaller. It's on a smaller scale, and this is the section of beach between the Manette Bridge, where we have a pump station at that location, kind of near the Boatshed restaurant, up to East 16th. So that section of beach main is going to be decommissioned and replaced with grinder pumps and an upland low pressure sewer system. So we're currently at about 75% design on that project right now. And depending on whether or not we can get permits, which seem to be a real difficult thing recently, we're going to try to go out to bid hopefully by the end of this year. Next one, nutrient general permit. This is the permit. We talked about this at council last week, and HTR is actually going to come to city council tomorrow just to do a PowerPoint presentation and talk about the project. So I think that will be very educational for everyone to learn about that project. So I don't know if I'm gonna, for that reason, I think I'll skim this real quick and just say that, we're on the verge of approving that contract with HDR so that they can support us with permit compliance. Wastewater treatment plant slide gates. That's a project to replace four gates at the wastewater treatment plant so that maintenance staff can isolate those respective processes and do work. So that contract is nearly complete. 2022 sewer rehabilitation, that's the project for lining sewer at various locations throughout the city, and Michael's Corporation is doing that work. That should be done in the next 3 to 4 weeks. Oyster Bay force main replacement, that project was completed recently. So the force main was turned over to the city, and we just have to do some final striping at the intersection of Kitsap Way and Oyster Bay Avenue. And then CW4 beach mitigation, that's a project for cleanup of the beach at the end of Ohio Avenue that's being done for some beach sewer that we left in place there buried. So DNR has asked us to do some mitigation out on the beach there. It's compensation. There's a way to compensate for leaving that beach sewer in place. So we've got a contractor on board for that. And we're going to do that work sometime in August and early September. That's it.
Jeff, questions?
The Manette sewer replacement, do I remember right? I think from last time, there are a few impacted homeowners and they've already been notified.
For the decommissioned beach sewer in Manette?
Yeah.
We're working with with the various condominium and single family resident owners right now.
Okay.
It's a pretty high touch project in terms of working with property owners, and so yeah, everyone that's going to be involved with the project has been informed.
It's already in the, okay, perfect. So that's already, just want to make sure in case I got a question on that to be district selfish. On the nutrient general permit, all right, this is just pure curiosity, not suggesting we ever do it. But what would happen if the city didn't comply, if we didn't submit for coverage by March 1st? I kind of raised it quickly in council, but since we have a little more time, I'm just curious.
Well, we already applied for coverage under the permit, and so I think the March 1st date, that's when we owe them a report on our optimization. I believe it's achievements for 2022. this thing just clips right along and has some really, it's got a lot of deadlines in it that started immediately. And we've been down the path of not complying with permits before, and it didn't work out for us. We were in a lawsuit, very expensive lawsuit, and then we also we settled in federal court with the Puget Sound Keeper Alliance. Can't remember what year it was, 80s, I think, mid to late 80s, something like that. And then in the midst of the lawsuit, the Department of Ecology either sued us, or I'm not sure, they went through some enforcement action or another, and we ended up on another order with them. Both of the federal order and also the order from Ecology had separate timelines, and they were incredibly tight. And because of that, we had to expedite our combined sewer overflow reduction program much faster than other jurisdictions that were trying to, work as best they could towards compliance. And it was tough. It was terrible. And I fully expect that we'd get sued again. I mean, there's the kind of the genesis of the nutrient general permit was from a citizens group, and it's not PSA, although the Puget Sound Keeper Alliance is involved in this. What's that other group? There's another group that
Northwest Environmental
Advocates. Yeah, there you go. And I think they threatened lawsuit or something. I'm not sure what it was, but they engaged with I believe the governor's office and Ecology, and so anyway, I think that some promises were made that led to where we are now with the with the nutrient general permit. So,
but basically
Okay.
we'd be subject to fines from Ecology and third-party lawsuits, which are even worse probably. So
yeah.
The wrath of Can ain't nothing to it.
Yeah. No, thanks. Just it's good to have in my back pocket. So excellent. Nope, you guys are doing awesome, following the dual paths on it. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, so just really quickly, the decommissioned beach sewer in Manette, you've got what, 13 laterals where you're gonna go inside their houses and sneer at their decor? Okay, but you have to, I think you were telling us at the last Public Works meeting, Ned, I think it was you who explained how extensive it's both electrical and plumbing. Yeah.
Yeah, and we get a right of entry. We, before we even go in and start looking around, we talk to them, tell them what we're doing. We get a right of entry so we can go and inspect, look at panels, do all that. And there's, then we're working with them during construction, and then there's an agreement they need to sign that we get recorded so that they're on our maintenance list for. So there's a lot of communication with each one of them.
Yeah.
It's pretty invasive because you're going very close to people's houses and you're digging up their yards but we've done a few of these now. We've 3 or 4 different projects, and is it fair to say that typically the residents that we're working with that understand that we're getting sewer off the beach are fairly receptive to the project? Is that a fair statement, Bill and Ned?
Yes, it's rare. It's pretty rare for anyone to object. So we have the system down pretty well. We're actually, when Ned and I have attended meetings in the past where people have asked about these projects, we've been a real resource to other agencies. And I'm actually giving a presentation at APWA in September to talk about these projects and how, what we do and our involvement with the public. And so it's been we've learned a lot.
Very environmentally responsible approach to just upgrading the system based on the ability to use newer technologies.
It's O&M responsible too, because our O&M staff can't even access this. So if it fails on the beach at high tide, we can't even get to it. So we're putting the infrastructure in a place where you can walk to it or drive to it and actually physically access it anytime. So
You were saying that even at slack tide, it was tough to get at. Yeah.
Yeah, we have some manholes in our system that are at like the 0 tide line. So you have to have a minus tide to get in, unseal a manhole, do any work, seal it back up before the tide comes in. And that's not a very big window.
No,
Manhole at that level on the beach. So
just saying, in a kind of meta comment, it's really helpful each time you guys explain to us, either in speech or by putting it on the agenda, where the money's coming from and how much the money is and where it's coming from. Just saying. Okay, well, I have no further questions on this. Bill, go off, run free.
Thank you.
Okay.
thanks, Bill.
Okay, so moving right along towards the end of page 1 of 2, streets. Gunnar, HSIP, Kids Away Bike Lanes and Warren Avenue Traffic Signal Safety, 2.89 million, HSIP, whatever that is, 439K city match. What's
Right.
HSIP, please?
Highway Safety Improvements Project. And this is number 3. We did the first one back in 2010, 2011. Second one was a few years, I think 2016, 2017, Ned. And then so this is the third.
2018.
Or 2018, okay. And so this is the third of this type of a program. This is putting our bike lanes in on Kitsap Way, signal improvements, signal timing improvements, which is going to be the biggie, and general just clean up on the signals themselves, new pedestrian heads, reflective tape for when the signals go out, that you can see them in the dark, and just sort of all sorts of improvements, including the ped push buttons. So good news here, contractor, the electrical subcontractor is pretty much done and he's out of the picture. We just had WASDOT come out and do a final inspection yesterday, and we have no sidewalk handicap ramps that need to be replaced. So we're all good right there. Last thing left is the Stripe Right, their subcontractor, completing that channelization and paint marks on the ground. And we're hoping that they will be done by the first week in August. So we will be wrapping this project up and putting it to physical completion as soon as we can.
One thing to add, the HSIP, that's actually a grant, the Highway Safety Improvement Program. That's the grant funding. And then the match is, I don't know where the match is coming from. REIT, probably. Real Estate Excise Tax, probably.
Jeff, do you have any questions?
Got to so for the timing on Warren, is that all goes into effect at once all the upgrades are in place, or has that been slowly rolling out? Is it
It's actually, we were waiting for all the signal improvements to be made, and then Jeff is going to be a busy boy for a little bit. He's still wrapping up the project. We're going through final punch list items and so forth. So he's probably not going to get to the actual timing portion of this for about another month. And then it's going to be a slow rollout on getting that signal timing done.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, we have 2 corridors in this where we're working on the signal timing. The first one is Kitsap Way, from the State Route 3 interchange down to Callow, and the second corridor is Warren and Wheaton from Burwell all the way up to Riddell Road. And I think actually we're even looking at the state signal at Fernie's as well.
Fernie's. Yeah, we're going all the way to Fernie's.
Yeah, all the way to Fernie. So there's quite a bit of signals in this project that we're going to be adjusting the timing to, and we want to do it in a slow, methodical way, so that we can adjust based off from comments that we receive from customers and the public. So the idea would be to start with Kitsap Way and then to move on to Warren Avenue and Wheaton after that. And it's going to be done in a slow fashion towards the end of the summer.
Okay, so over a couple months. Oh, sorry, Anna.
My bad, I interrupted you. Please go on.
I was asking, so it'll be over a couple months until the final tweaks are, I mean, I'm sure it gets tweaked over time with traffic changes, but.
Yeah, the idea would be over several weeks, maybe even a couple months. And we really are trying to figure out what Jeff's schedule is going to be to figure out when the actual timing is going to be on that. So hopefully by the next time we'll meet, we'll have a good updated idea of what that looks like.
And what the schedule looks like. So,
Right.
and there's quite a bit to it too, because one of the big things we've got to do is we've got, I think one of the big corrections, Shane, was pedestrian timing.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, we had pedestrian timings that we have spent years that we haven't updated. So this is a time to do it. But what's happening is that we have long distances across the roadway, particularly on our 5-lane sections, and we didn't have the pedestrian timings in there to meet requirements. So that's going to be a big change for these corridors to have that updated.
Okay, that helps a lot. I've had a couple of people ask about, you know, when's that happening? When's that going in? And so that helps to be able to explain it to them, and yeah, not to expect to wake up on a Monday morning and it's all different. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
Other question I had on the bike lane paint, is there an expected kind of lifetime for that, or I guess two-part question, expected lifetime, and then, I mean, it's correct, it's the same, it looks to me the same type of paint that's used in other jurisdictions and same color scheme and like everything in the presentation for the other month.
Yeah, so the type of pavement markings we put out there for the bike lane was thermoplastic. There's different types.
Okay.
There's paint, there's thermoplastic, and there's I hate saying this word, but everybody pronounces it MMA for the acronym, but it's methyl methacrylate, I believe. Gunnar, correct me if I'm wrong.
Nope,
But
you got it.
but it's you know, and paint, you know, and thermoplastic can't, you know, they say that it lasts about 5 years depending on how much it's driven over, and so it could be less if it's driven over a lot, it could be more if it's not. So but that's about the rule of thumb, about 5 years.
Okay. No, perfect, thank you. I think it's amazing, it's good. I saw one or two very small negative comments I just wanted to have prepared in my back pocket for, so, you know.
And actually, so the thermoplastic, when they put it down, it comes in sheets, and they lay the sheets down, and they have like a big heat gun, essentially. That
Well, there's two
melts
ways
it.
to put the thermoplastic down, and one is actually it comes out, they've got a hot pot and they set a form down and they pour it into it. And then they've got the sheets, the cut sheets, preformed sheets.
Okay, well, the stuff that they put down here, they use the sheets.
Well, it's looking awesome every time I drive by all the bicycle improvements. It's really neat to see. And I've got again back pocket for the few negative, but tons of positive people. Super happy to see that happening. So kudos. And that's it, Anna.
Kudos back to all of you, because I drive through there at least once a day. And it's remarkable how it just smartens up the road and it sharpens up the drivers. It's really looks great. And I love the idea of the adaptive signaling, and that it can be adapted. Is that the correct term, Shane?
Well, this one, we have a separate adaptive signals. This one is just a static retiming based off from volumes. And the adaptive signal is a little bit of a different product that hopefully we can get on some of these corridors in the future here. But this is just a straight retime. We have what we do have, and what I think you're thinking of, I think, is we have a coordinated signal system out on Kitsap Way as well as on Warren and Wheaton. And what that means is that we tie all the signals together to try to get efficiencies in moving traffic through them, so that, you know, one person hits one signal, and then by the time they get to another signal, it's green, and we try to get progression through them, and try to reduce delay that way. And we just haven't updated our timing on these signals since the early 2000s, and we have different traffic patterns. We've had developments in the city, and so things change, and we just needed to update the timing, and then those coordination packages needed to be updated as well. But it should make everything, you know, I'm hoping to streamline the corridor and travel through the corridor.
Excellent. I love it that it can be tweaked. Okay, I have no further questions on this. Gunnar, be off.
Thank you all.
Thank you for your presentation. Okay. We are still on streets, and Vicki Grover is going to present the East 11th Perry reconstruction for 6.5 mil with a $4 million TIB grant. What's TIB? Transportation Improvement Board? Yes.
Nicely done. Good
Please take
evening,
it away.
everyone. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So my project update for 11th and Perry is we recently opened bids for construction. The bids came in higher than expected, and consequently we have a budget shortfall. So we are currently reviewing options to move the project forward. We have two options that we're currently entertaining and reviewing and investigating. One option is that we reject all bids and we re-advertise the project at a later date. Our second option is that we look to possibly cut some of the project elements of work and determine if we can come up with additional funding from the city to move the project forward. You guys have some questions?
Let me just expand on that a little bit.
Okay.
So our project costs are blowing up right now. And WashDOT indicated, as I understand it, that they're seeing bids come in, between 30 and 50% higher than they had historically, than they had anticipated. And the way that we budget, the way that we fund our transportation projects is very, very challenging. And this is an excellent example of that because, we applied for the funding to deliver this project in 2018. And so when you apply for funding for a project that's going to be constructed 3-4 years into the future, you don't understand what the bid climate is. You don't expect Russia to invade Ukraine. You don't expect COVID to hit. I mean, there's a lot of things that are just really unknowns. You don't know what the bid climate's going to be. And the way that we deliver all of our transportation projects with grant funding and match. And so essentially when we're applying for the grant, because our match is finite, we're kind of setting up the project budget at that time, right? And so what we're doing right now, and working hard at it, and by we, I don't mean me, I mean Shane, Vicky, and Ned, right? What they're doing right now is they're looking at all of our transportation projects and updating the cost estimates. And then we're going to be looking at them holistically. What projects can delay? What projects can we adjust? What other projects like chip seal or slabjack or other projects that use unrestricted revenue, what other projects may delay in order to direct funding to these capital projects to move them forward. And so it's something that we're working on right now. We don't have answers for council at this time, but we're looking hard at it. We'll be working with the mayor and bringing forward, an approach to deliver our priorities. But I just want to be really clear on that.
And we've had this project scheduled up for our council for award. And you'll probably see that it's been pushed once already, and it's probably been pushed again. And we're trying to figure out what we're going to do before we come to council for award. So that's why you've seen that over the past, I think, 2 weeks. So.
Ned, did you have?
Yeah, so I would just add right now our shortfall from our conversation today, it looks like it's about $1.1 million. So it's significant, it's like the scale of a project almost. And we've got the Transportation Improvement Board, and they won't allow us to scale the project back and use the funding that we have. Like that was one option. That's not an option. We have to bid the entire scope that we presented in the grant. And right now they're indicating that we would have to do that with the funding that they've provided and come up with any additional funds to do it right now, come up with that from other, match sources. If we reject all bids, and Tom was in a meeting with Vicky with them last week that I missed because I was fishing. But if we reject all bids, we're going to wait until like December, January to re-advertise, and then go to one of their board meetings to ask for more money. If you want more money from TIB, it's basically rejecting bids now and then delaying the project another 6 months, which impacts our temporary construction easements that we have. And delaying, right now just is going to add costs. You delay projects, there's escalation and inflation, and it adds costs, right? And when you rebid a project, which every time I've done it, I've never seen the costs go down. Like the second round of bidding is always benchmarked by the first round, and you see even higher bids. So we're trying to figure out if we can figure out a way to fund this with match from these other, projects in the CIP and move it forward now and try to maintain schedule, or if we need to just wait and then reboot and then go hat in hand to TIB and see if they'll approve additional funding. And then if they don't, we're kind of in the same place that we were in today. So,
Yeah, and the only thing that I would add to that is we have to make those decisions in the context of the rest of our project delivery.
yes.
As well.
So we're trying to look at the whole
Yeah.
picture right now.
Yeah, it's complicated. It's very complicated.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, don't envy all. That's a rough one. And is it correct? All the normal companies you'd expect to place bids. It wasn't that like a couple didn't bid that might bid down the road.
How many bids did we get?
We got 4 bids, and they're actually really, 3 of the 4 bids, the 3 low bids were really tight. They were within $200,000 of their bids. And the only thing I'd say about that, which is somewhat annoying, is that the low bidder didn't end up submitting their proper documentation within time. And so we've had to reject the low bidder's bid and go with the second low bidder, which ended up being $200,000 more than the low bid. So if we do come to council with a word on this, that's something that we'll mention and something to be aware of. But every once in a while that happens. As a matter of fact, on this project, we ended up getting a bid protest from the second low bid, and they received the low bidder's proposal package and then decided to protest it. So we had to look at the protest, and at the end of the day, there was a valid protest and we had to reject the bid, the low bid. So this happened, I think 3 years ago on another project that we had as well. So it happens every once in a while.
It usually happens from the same second low bidder.
Yeah, from the same company.
But it's business, and that's how they, if they come in second, they need to look to see if there's a valid protest so that they can get first in line, right? It's just
Makes sense. It could have only been 0.9 million over instead of 1.1.
Yeah.
No an issue. Okay, I won't dig into any of the funding solutions. Let y'all come back to us. So just thinking out loud, obviously seems very unlikely to start construction kind of in the later fall, winter, as we were, I think, originally planned. If I remember right, the plan was getting towards the fall. You could do some stuff over the winter, depending on weather conditions, then hopefully knock out a lot in the spring, which was going to make a lot of the businesses pretty happy to be open for summer. So I'm guessing probably plan on that being delayed, TBD, but we could, if I got it right, we could be looking at almost a whole year delay on this. It's a possibility.
If we can sort this out and award, if that's the option that we're able to do, then I'd anticipate we'd still be under construction this fall, with work happening over winter through spring. But if we need to delay the project and re-advertise and until January timeframe, then we're probably looking at starting work at spring, summer of next year is probably what that timing is looking like.
Okay, cool. Thanks. I'll stay tuned before saying anything.
Pessimistic that we're going to be able to award. We'll see.
So, Vicki, you guys are planning to grind down the existing surface and sort of start building a road again?
Yes, that's correct. We'll remove the asphalt and the subgrade and put it's reconstruction, it's rebuilding of the road for this project.
So I'm just asking, is it a possibility? Can this road be saved? Can this road be chip sealed or the other thing?
Unfortunately,
Go ahead, Shane.
No, go
Well,
ahead.
I was going to say, I think we're going to say the same thing. Unfortunately, it cannot because we're changing the grades. We're changing the grade of the sidewalk to comply with ADA. which then affects the grades of your curb and gutter and your road sections. Hopefully we can come up with a solution to do the project and rebuild and regrade everything. And rather than putting it on our chip seal or our pavement maintenance program.
Let us be hopeful. You know, it would really be great if Public Works could get together two things. One would be the sky hook. And that would be really great. And the second one would be like the magnetic road surface where the cars would just float above it. That'd be very wonderful. And I would look forward to that a lot. Okay.
Kind of beyond the scope of all of our current projects. So
Mhm.
Scope creep,
that
scope
would
creep. Okay. Vicky, please go ahead with SR 303 Warren Avenue Bridge pedestrian improvements, 26.5 million, 26.5 straight, 26.5 something state grant.
Thank you. So the Warren Avenue Bridge project, we're in feasibility analysis at this point in time. And we have 5 options that we're currently looking at. And the consultant is putting together a package for us to take to our stakeholders group we're estimating it to be in August, so next month. As long as they're able to tidy up all of their work to present to the stakeholders. So it's moving along. Not at lightning speed, but it's moving along.
And I'd just like to add a little bit to that. One of the biggest issues on this project was the feasibility of even widening the bridge. But we have a structural engineer that sharpened the pencil and was able to figure out a way to be able to widen the bridge. But also we have a constraint of WashDOT doesn't want to add too much weight to the bridge, because then it kicks the bridge into a whole nother structural analysis with seismic evaluation and that type of thing. And so they did figure out a way for us to keep within that threshold that keeps us with being able to expand the bridge without the seismic analysis. And so that was actually a very positive thing that we just were able to figure out over the past couple of months. So it is feasible for us to widen the bridge without having to go through and do a structural analysis and structural upgrades, which would be very expensive on this bridge. So that to me, I think, is a good point that we resolved recently.
Feel free to tell me no if asking for a sneak peek, but do the alternatives include are they all symmetrical, the same expansion on both sides, or do some of them have the kind of single wider on one side?
Oh, and we're looking at both. So we've looked at, just one side, and then we've looked at 8 foot on both sides. We're going to look at 10 foot on both sides. And then we've looked at the 16 foot on either the west or east side. So we're trying to keep it mixed up and based on the input we received back from the stakeholders in the public. So so I believe that we're trying to look at all options.
That's fantastic. And do each of those are the scope of those also considering kind of the on and off ramps on each side of the bridge and how that kind of connects to the wider trail? Okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. So the connections are in there.
And the costs vary. I'll tell you, that was kind of an eye-opening for us too, is depending on if it's the east side, the west side, or both sides, the connectivity to the north and south of the bridge can significantly add costs. But we are definitely looking at those.
Perfect. I'm just taking a second to think of anything else on this, because it's definitely something I've gotten a lot of questions on, but
why don't you let me jump in and then you
go
can
for it. Yeah.
How's that? Okay.
Perfect.
You said there were 5 alternatives, but I'm looking at the capital projects from July 2022 and it just shows 4.
Yeah, we ended up getting and contractually that's what we have in our contract with them is 4, but due to the public feedback, there has been a 5th alternative. And I guess what I would say is due to costs, maintenance concerns with WashDOT. I'm not sure how long all 5 of these alternatives will move forward because we'll probably end up having to not pursue 1 or 2 of these. but we wanted to at least have all the information put together so people could see, yes, we looked at it. And for these reasons, these specific alternatives will not be moving forward, whether it be cost, maintenance reasons. Again, connectivity, depending on what side of the bridge you're on, can add so much cost. In fact, to be really honest, we are having a little bit of a hard time finding out if we can keep this project within budget as well, where we're currently sitting. So another cost that is a little higher than we anticipated. And so we're working through those issues on this project as well.
Is one of the alternatives what I call the Iverson-Dutke alternative of just one side quite wide, as we all saw in Jeff Coughlin's presentation last month, of like how extremely user-friendly it suddenly became? What, Jeff, 14 foot?
Yeah, and I think I heard that one of those is definitely under consideration.
It is. So to be honest, it says 16 foot we're looking at on the east or west side. And just be upfront about the downfall to that is there is not a U-bit that you can purchase or that WashDOT owns that can inspect that bridge. Therefore, that could be a potential issue with having a 16-foot wide path on either side of the bridge.
U-bit is under bridge inspection truck.
Thanks,
And,
Tom.
and I think WashDOT has to physically be able to put hands on the bridge. Is that I heard something?
They have to be within arm's length of the structural steel members is what they have to do for their maintenance requirements with FHWA.
Sorry to poke, is that because it's 16 instead of 14 feet, or is it because of the existing bridge design?
It's the wider we look to expand the bridge, the less reach the U-bit has. They call it a fly zone of the the radius of that U-bit that it can reach. And so they kind of path that out on the bridge to see, the consultant does, to see when does it get too wide that they cannot see all the members underneath the bridge that they need to. Does that make sense, Jeff?
Yeah, it makes sense on the physical. I'm just thinking they must have something for at least a 14 feet for the other bridges that have that. I mean, over near Seattle.
So the U-bit that they do have, and there's a feasibility study that we embarked in on 2016 to look at this, but the U-bit that WashDOT does have in their inventory can only span, the arm for that can only span over an 8-foot wide clear distance path on the side of the bridge, because it has to go down and then back over and underneath the bridge. And in their inventory, that's the limitation is the U-bit that they have in their inventory, and that's the limitation is that 8 feet. And if we go wider than 8 feet, then there's two things that can happen. There is a U-bit on the market that can expand out further than that 8 feet, but WashDOT doesn't have it in their inventory. So that would be a cost that we would have to figure out who pays for that, if it's a project or WashDOT, right? And it costs money. And I think our consultant told us today that it was about $1 million for a U-bit that can have an additional reach to it. But there's a certain threshold that U-bit that WashDOT doesn't have there's a limitation there to how far a U-bit on the market can go. And the wider portion of sidewalk, I think it was like 16 feet wide, I think is what we were looking at. There's not a U-bit on the market that can span that width of a sidewalk. And so what that would require is the DOT inspection folks to have to put together a rope team and have some sort of team underneath the bridge, and with ropes and
It could be a festival.
climbing gear and that type of thing. And I'm not sure exactly what that looks like. We haven't gotten that far in the analysis and the conversation, but that's my understanding.
Okay. We did get that far. So I think a couple other options maybe that you're thinking of, they talked about, and maybe some of the bridges you're referring to in Seattle are, they're like a cage that sits underneath the bridge.
Catwalk.
Catwalk.
Yeah.
But again, that isn't an option for us because it adds too much weight to the bridge. Again, keeping us underneath that threshold of additional
Sorry,
weight.
you mean the way it's supported physically from underneath, or?
Yeah. If it was a catwalk, that's where it would be, is underneath, and it would add weight and could potentially kick us into that seismic retrofit, which will cost way more money than we have. So we're trying not to cross that 10% additional weight onto the bridge. And
So,
the
sorry,
and
okay,
they,
you mean the surface that people are riding on is physically below the surface of the road, rest of the bridge, or?
no, a specific catwalk can be added to those structures for inspection.
Oh, I gotcha. So you
Under-
they built-
underneath.
they built that,
Yes.
sorry, they built the catwalk underneath for people to
Right.
inspect through access. Okay.
There's two
All
additional
right.
options for inspection. So, and then the rope team and Shane, Mr. Zeldenhurst said, yeah, they have one. They have 2 rope teams that actually do rope off like climbing gear underneath bridges. And it sounded like maybe we would go there until an additional staff member from the bridge team said, we don't want to do that. They're, you know, they have enough work as it is. So they've alluded to us, they do not want to look at the option to allow that bridge widening to be enough to where they had to send one of their 2 rope teams in to inspect it.
And you're
I
saying,
honestly
they-
don't blame them for that.
I don't either.
when you're
Yeah.
saying they here, Vicky, are you talking about WashDOT?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, please go on, Ned.
It's their bridge. I mean, I guess.
Yeah.
WashDOT structure.
So I'm not hearing Jeff ask the question, but I keep waiting for him to ask it, like, what is the width of sidewalk that the current maximum size U bid that you can buy? What is that width that it can span? Is it 12?
Now-
Is it 14 feet? Is it 13 feet? Do we
It's
know?
gotta be something, because Jeff makes a really good point. I mean, if they have catwalks, but absent catwalks, how do they inspect the other ones?
Well, it seems like that's a question we're gonna need to answer and understand, and I don't have that answer in my head, but it seems like something simple to figure out and discuss, so.
So what's the maximum that the UBIT can inspect?
So
know.
existing U, but I think Shane answered that one. That would be.
8
that would-
feet.
Yeah. Now, and then the wider paths that we're looking at where we would include a new U-bit for WashDOT is being included. And so that would be the 10-foot and the 12-foot.
So up to 12 feet we're looking at.
Well, but we'd have to purchase, or somebody would have to purchase it.
Somebody would
Well,
have
and
to.
WashDOT's gonna say it's gonna be us, like I don't think, when we've had that conversation in the past, they don't have any intention of buying that U-bit right now. So that would
That's
probably,
the impression I get, Ned. Yes.
yeah.
Okay,
Sounds
Jeff,
like
do
it'd
you
be
have any
good to-
more? I'm sorry, I was just.
No, okay, I was gonna, wrap up with, sounds like it'd be good if able to double check those other bridges and find out if indeed they're all manual rope with catwalks, and then, okay. Thanks, that helps a lot. All right, I'll stay tuned.
I have seen bridges inspected from cranes mounted on barges.
And I think that's definitely another way to do it. I'm not sure you could do it because of how high up is that bridge from the water, Shane? Do we know?
Oh,
It's
not off the
high.
top of my head. I mean, but it's high.
And barges are gonna be, I mean, if you had to come in annually with a barge, that's an expensive inspection process.
That the current flows fast and hard
Yeah.
to the Port Washington Narrows. So
Yeah, it's like 6 knots.
yeah.
I personally think that we should get the rope team. I think this would become an annual festival. There'd be like wall climbing events, and then the finale with the rope climbing. We could do bridge blast afterwards. I mean, I'm speaking in a light tone, but I think if we could, in fact, get the rope team, or as I said earlier, the skyhook, is the 16 or 14-foot wide feasible? If
Yeah,
it's,
if we
is
can-
inspection the only problem with it?
That is,
Well-
yes, that's
well,
correct.
Well, I would say it's actually, it's cost as well. You know, in general, the larger width that you expand out, the more cost that you're going to pay. Right now, our consultant's showing us a significantly over budget for some of these options. So there's other factors that play into it as well.
So you've got to build the bike and pedestrian section as if loaded semis were going to drive over it.
No, the section of sidewalk is the loads are different. You know, when they're pedestrian loads on them and live loads like that, as opposed to you know, like a truck, like a heavy truck with pointed weights on them, like the tires and the axles. So the loadings are different, and the loadings on the sidewalk are less for pedestrians. So actually, that's one of the things that you know, the expansion of the sidewalk on here wouldn't allow. With the proposal that we have that's being brought forward, would not allow vehicle traffic on it. And we asked the question today, would it be able to allow a small street sweeper, you know, like a handheld one, like something along those lines? And that's something that our consultant was going to check in on. But basically, it's live load only with pedestrians and bicyclists, and that's the loading on it. Can't support vehicles. So.
Okay. I have one more question in which I will be Eric Younger for a minute. This was something he wanted asked, which is what is the timeline and process? When there was that meeting with the consultants and many of you early this spring, I believe they were talking about the next meeting would be in the fall. Can one of you give me details for Eric?
Like next steps in the schedule for this feasibility study?
Yeah.
Do you have a schedule, Vicky, for that?
Well, I have a tentative schedule, and again, sometimes things kind of get pushed, you know, trying to get everybody together. So let me just say that. So tentatively, we're planning in August to go to the stakeholders with our alternatives to get their feedback. And then we're tentatively shooting for September for a public meeting to take the alternatives that we discuss and move forward from the stakeholder group to the public.
Public
And
meeting? I'm sorry,
Sorry.
Vicky, I'm writing public meeting or public hearing?
Public meeting,
Please go on.
public outreach meeting. And then I believe it's either October or November, we are slated to start design.
And then, so at some point, it's my understanding, Vicky, that after the public meeting, that's not a council meeting, right? That's just a public meeting. And then there is a council meeting to present a preferred alternative for approval. Is that true?
Yes, thank you, Ned. I missed that. Yes, that is correct. Before we start design, there will be we will bring forward the preferred alternative for the stakeholders and the public to City Council for review and approval.
And there's
and
also a contract that needs to be approved, because we've only approved a feasibility study right now, or have we approved the whole design contract?
Nope, just feasibility so far.
Okay, so there will
Yeah,
be
so
a
there will
design contract associated with it also.
That's correct. And I'm thinking possibly for our next quarterly project update, the consultant's putting together a really nice spreadsheet with the options, a brief description, and then the pros and cons of each that will help us kind of make those decisions. And I think that could be something we could share with you, if that would help you guys kind of understand where we're at and how we're moving forward on the basic criteria and the roadblocks, the things that we can't get past, like cost or maintenance with WashDOT.
Lots of choice is always a son of a gun. So let me just run through this and make sure that I have it right. September public outreach meeting. Subsequent to that, but before October or November, you're going to present to council at a study session.
Yes,
And then you'll sadly present to council again at a general meeting.
yes.
Okay. And then in October and November, so the consultants in consultation with you guys, with you all, will determine what is the preferred alternative that you're going to take to council?
Yes, well, and again, it'll be driven by the stakeholders and the public. We'll just be presenting the information and have them guide us.
I don't want to make any mistakes when I'm writing to Eric Younger. You can understand that.
Yes.
Okay. Jeff, did you have anything more on this one?
No, thanks for going through this one. I know it's a big one, in a lot of people's minds. So thanks for the extra time.
All
Thank
right. Vicky, we will see you later in the world of transportation planning, but now let us, oh, nope. Yours is just as scattered, Katie. Okay, Katie, please present to us on the Quincy Square.
Yeah, so Quincy Square and 4th Street continues to be in design. I think the big thing to update you on this quarter is that we have finally received communication from our grant pass-through agency, which is the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So that's really great news. They've started to outline the process of getting the grant agreement in place, so we can start to move that process forward. And with that, we also know who our reviewing agency is for the environmental permits, the NEPA. So we will be able to move that forward. So those are kind of our immediate next steps. We continue to be on schedule to wrap up the design by the end of 2022 and put the project out to bid at the end of 2022 for construction in 2023.
Great, thank you. Jeff, do you have any questions?
And it sounds like the Arts Commission's all on track with some of the public artwork, and that's all being coordinated and progressing.
That's right, yes.
Cool, good deal. Nope, closely tied into this one. So nope, nice work moving this along, and we can chat more anytime.
Okay, I have no questions on Quincy Square. So thank you very much, Katie. We have about 1,600 different items that Shane Weber is about to discuss. Shane.
Would you mind if I go the Gunner path and just rattle through all the projects?
I was just going to say, follow the way of Gunner.
Okay, all right, good. Let me get the aura going here. So number 5 is Kitsap Lake Elementary School Safe Routes to Projects. This project has actually been completed last year, towards the end of last year, and we're just wrapping up a few loose ends on the project and the punch list. And there's an issue that cropped up over the winter where we had water blow out of the side of a sidewalk and actually leaked down into somebody's house and caused a little bit of damage. So that's one of the issues that we're just trying to fix before we close out the project. But I suspect in about a month or two we'll be done this project and on our way. And hopefully by the time we meet next, I'll have this job crossed off the list. So that's where we sit with that one. The next one, number 6, Safe Routes to School Safety Zone Improvements. Basically what this is installing speed feedback signs at several schools in the city. Crown Hill, Bud Hawk, View Ridge, Arminjar are a couple of them. And we have been having this project be on the back burner because of a couple other projects we're trying to get out. So I'd anticipate this job to be complete with the design by the fall to winter of this year and advertised towards the end of this year is what we're shooting for.
Really quick interruption, Shane, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
On this list of the schools that are covered by Safe Routes to School, I keep not seeing West Hills. I know it's inside Kitsap, the school buildings are inside Kitsap County.
Yeah, that's why we didn't. Yeah, that's why we didn't include it on here, is because it's not our jurisdiction for the roadways there.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Just an FYI that the Safe Routes to Schools, I think it just, the funds can only be used for elementary schools and not high schools, I believe. Isn't that true, Shane? I'm not sure. cool.
They do allow you to actually look at high schools.
Oh, really?
top.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll dab then. Thank you.
Let's see
West
here.
Hills is elementary.
No, I know. I was just,
Right.
we didn't have the high school on here. Right.
Right.
I'm sorry, Tom. I, like all the rest of us, am getting quite tired. Shane, please take it away.
Okay, so the next one is 11th and Washington improvements. This project is one where we received a lot of comments from the neighborhood residents at the end of last year. We were trying to wrestle with what to do with it early this year, and we came through some concepts. I talked about an amendment earlier tonight where we're trying to wrap up the design by adding a little bit of landscaping, going through construction, and we ended up applying for an extension on the funding through Puget Sound Regional Council. That, quite honestly, is the first time that we did that. We weren't sure if we were going to get it, and we did end up getting the extension. And so we've pushed the schedule out for this project to advertise at the end of this year, December, January timeframe, and then we'll go to construction on it next year. But in the meantime, we're wrapping up the design changes right now. We'll be done with design about September, October timeframe, with the advertisement in December, January is what we're working on right now. The next project is rectangular rapid flashing beacons. This is part of actually it's part of the Highway Safety Improvement Program, the HSIP, but it's not named HSIP, thank God. So this is putting in rectangular rapid flashing beacons at several locations in the city. We just advertised for a consultant on this project. And we selected a consultant, DKS Associates, and we're going through and negotiating a contract with them to do the design work for the project. So, so depending on the cost of the contract, if it's over, if the $100,000 gets approved tomorrow by council, then if it's under $100,000, we'll probably will not be coming to you with it. If it gets approved, and if it's over $100,000, we'll be coming to council for approval. So. That's kind of sort of where we sit. I don't know what the cost is on it at the particular moment because we're still working on it. But this one, the only other thing to note about this project is that we have the grant funding allows for 100% construction to be covered by the grant if we get obligation by April of next year. And so in April 30th of next year. So this one is one that we're kind of trying to fast track to get that completed. So that the construction component is funded 100%. The next project is
Hey, Shane.
yes.
Shane, Councilor Mockler's got a question.
Oh, okay.
Really, just call me honest. Honest to gosh. So you have 8 locations chosen for these. Are these final locations?
There's one that is not final that we need to do a little bit more work on, and so 7 of them are. We've located intersections, and then one that we're planning on putting out at Sheridan. We have 2 crossings there. We just need to, at Cherry and one at Howerson. We just need to figure out which one is the most applicable. So
I was just thinking if you could shoot us a map at some point, it'd be really helpful.
absolutely, yeah, I can get it over to you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm just writing that down. Okay, so the next one, 6th Street Preservation Phase 2. This project was completed in March of this year, and we're just in the process of closing it down right now. Number 10, curb ramp and sidewalk repair program and sidewalk abatement. We have a lot going on here, actually, and Dave Carter with Street Operations, he's doing a great job at working on this, but they just completed the Perry Avenue segment of sidewalk, which has been taking several months to complete because it was being done through the winter. I believe it was in June beginning of June that they completed that segment. The next 2 segments that they have are well, they also worked on a Lower Wheaton Way segment as well, just north of Lebo, and that sidewalk, there's a sidewalk gap there that was poured, and there's 2 additional segments that they have on the list this summer. One is putting in sidewalk on Park Drive. That's going to be connecting to Evergreen Park, And the other segment is on East 11th Street, on the south side of East 11th, between Nipsic and Trenton. So that one is scheduled up for the summer. So those two projects hopefully should be underway and maybe completed by the next time we meet. We are in the process of putting together 2 grant applications to get funding for next year's sidewalk program. We have a TIB application and a CDBG application that we're working on right now. The next one is Naval Avenue rechannelization number 11. Council just approved our contract amendment for us to get started with the environmental process on that. So we held a kickoff meeting to move the environmental forward. Concurrently we're working to complete the 90% design by the end of this year. And we have a public open house meeting that's tentatively scheduled for September of this year, September, October timeframe. And the grant that we just received to fund the first phase of right-of-way isn't something that we're going to receive until 2024, but we may have the opportunity of accelerating it next year, and we'll just have to see how that will work if we get the opportunity to do that. Number 12 is a downtown bike lane project and Austin Drive bike lane striping. We are 98% done with that project right now. We're just working on some punch list items and wrapping those up and hopefully done here in the next 3 or 4 weeks or so. Number 13 is the 2021 pavement marking contract. That was a contract that they've been working on over the past couple of months, and that one I think they're almost done with, but I need to I apologize. I know it's pretty much almost complete, but I'm not sure exactly how much complete. So I'll send you guys a little bit of a better update on that one.
So whatever is going to get done is done, more or less.
I believe almost all of it's done right now.
Thank you.
Yeah. The 14 is 6th Street Preservation Phase 3. This is the Phase 3 of the 6th Street project that paves 6th Street between Naval Avenue and Warren Avenue, completes the overall 6th Street corridor. And we have started the design on this one with a 30% design being due towards the end of this year. So we're moving on this one. Number 15, 5-year trip hazard removal project. I'd say 15, 16, and 17. All 3 of those engineering has scoped up, and we're working in the 5-year trip hazard one. We're working with a consultant on a contract to advertise. The annual pavement markings maintenance project. We're working with a consultant to advertise that one as well. The contract is pretty much done. So hopefully going to advertisement pretty soon. And then the annual pavement preservation project. We advertised that in open bids, and that one was going to go to award with council this last session, but we held off on that because we're trying to figure out the funding situation for East 11th and Perry, and so we held off on bringing that to council for award until we can have a better definition of how we can deal with the East 11th Street project.
Really, I mean, all the projects, right? We're looking through
all the projects
through 24, our projects through 24, just to make sure that we don't shoot ourselves in the foot. So,
right. And so that's a quick update for you guys on those projects. Any questions?
Jeff, I'm going to jump in really quickly and then over to you, which is, I feel like at some point, since the counselors and the public works staff seem to be pretty stable right now, at some point, can we get to be like that old joke about the prisoners telling each other jokes like 17, you always mess up the punchline. At some point, could we say the rectangular rapid flashing beacons? Because I have heard you present this at least 3 times now. So just to kind of shorten the meetings for you guys, Do you think we might at some point be able to move forward to something like that? So over to you, Jeff. Ned,
Sure, yeah, Ned has a hand.
you're muted.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So we didn't always do this every 3 months, like more intricate explanation of the projects. We would just provide this, and then you could read it, and then if you had questions, you could ask it. So I don't know, Tom, if there's another way we might want to suggest that we approach this. So we're into like an hour and a half or 2 hours of this meeting, and it's just to like reiterate a lot of things that you've heard in the past. So, and I'm sure Eric has some thoughts about whether or not we should do that or not, and you do too, Tom. But if the issue is, hey, we're going through a document that we've seen every time, and then we just go through it more thoroughly every 3 months, maybe we should just go over what changed, or maybe we should just wait for questions and have you guys like bring questions. I don't know, Tom, I'm just spitballing here.
I think we landed on this because it was requested, is kind of why we're doing it. And if you'd like to see something different, I mean, we're happy to present differently. If there's just, we can forward out the project summary that you have, the hard copy. And then if you want to let us know what projects you want to talk about, happy to do that too. One thing that I did want to really quickly, I just want to show you. I'm not sure everybody knows about this, but we have on our website, I just Googled City of Bremerton construction map. And so this map is on the city's website. It's all the 2022 construction projects graphically showing what we're doing. And then there's a legend here that kind of identifies the projects. Just want to let you know that that exists, but however you want to do it, however you want to manage these meetings, we're here to support.
I guess my 2 cents is I go back and forth. It does take extra time, and maybe it's just, finally feeling up to speed after 6 months coming in fresh. It is nice to hear some of these again, because I know I'm like, oh my God, what was that thing? Yeah. But rereading it also does the same thing. So, and I tend to just write down questions throughout the months on some of the bigger projects that I hear them, and then get ready to ask them here. So I'd be fine with just going through it written as homework, and then we can ask questions about it. Or if there's anything you really want to, put out there and say, hey, major change to this project, let's discuss it. What do you think, Anna?
I can read.
Well, we're 3 months out to doing this again, so maybe the next Public Works Committee meeting with all 3 of you here, maybe you guys can make sure there's a consensus before we change, but
yeah.
Okay, but you guys would be okay with that? I mean, none of you just goes, oh my gosh, my little heart's going pit-a-pat, another long Public Works Committee meeting. No,
yeah,
not happening.
I'd be okay with it.
We're totally fine with it. Yeah.
Because I personally, and it's over to Jeff and Eric, of course, but I personally would rather use this time to like talk about how Public Works works instead of hearing about all these small pieces over the time. It's like, okay, wait a minute. How'd you decide on 11th and Perry? Like I've followed some of that because I've been like 11th and Perry has been around since I first started following council. But it'd be interesting to be able to be of more use to you guys during these meetings, rather than, because saying the same thing for about the 111th time, like even dog trainers don't like that.
You're talking on it more thinking what's the current 5-year plan, and kind of periodically looking and assessing that. I mean, like
what's the what are the traffic calming methods that have worked for you? Just like what drives the fish passage, the extremely extensive fish passage work. I mean, it's the ESA, but something a little more detailed than that. I guess a chance for you guys to talk about the stuff that you're doing that you're excited about would be fun.
Well, maybe this would be a good conversation for the next Public Works Committee meeting to see how we, and it, we need a little structure, like we need to see it coming, right? Like it needs to be on the agenda, and then if it takes a significant amount of work to prepare for it, then we probably want some more time. But if it's a conversation, it's like, hey, I'd like to put this on the agenda, and it's a conversation, we can probably accommodate that quickly, right? As opposed to, I need to put together a 3-page white paper and a PowerPoint and that sort of thing. So
I personally never want to see another PowerPoint again.
I apologize in advance.
I know that it will happen. It's like one of those things you just gotta do. It's like the dishes in the sink. They yell at you reproachfully. You just gotta do them. Okay, if we talk to Eric before the next Public Works Committee meeting, maybe we could start changing this around, and instead of like recapping the entirety of every project, you could say, here's a change. The contractor took all the money and went to France. Stuff like that, really dramatic changes.
This is the high level. This is the high level recap, by the way. I mean, there are a couple we dug in a little bit more detail, and that's just because of the presenter, but this is the high level, just cutting over the top recap.
It's a lot of ground to cover.
This is a very, very, very robust capital workload that we're working on.
No kidding.
So
I'm doing a ton.
Yeah.
Okay. So Jeff and I will talk to Eric, and like 2 weeks notice would be enough for you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, so the possibility of reducing boredom is one I think we can all get behind. Well, not boredom, but repetition, Sorry. Because it's not boring. Like all of this stuff is actually really interesting. But once you've said it so many times. Yeah.
I wrote down a couple things from the Shane brain dump if it's good to go through them.
I think that's what we're always going to call it henceforth, the Shane
Perfect.
brain dump.
Oh, but one,
Nice.
sorry, one quick go back to the 11th and Perry before I forget was I was in an MBA meeting the other day, and they reminded me they have those blue wayfinding signs, and I can't even remember if I sent an email about this or not, so sorry if it's a repetition. But I wanted to make sure those were included in the 11th and Perry designs, or the folks were aware of that.
Yeah, we talked to the MBA about those wayfinding signs. Apparently they are their signs. And we're removing them as part of the project and putting them back in is basically what we're doing as part of the project.
Perfect. Okay. That's
Yeah.
what I'm good.
But if there's anything else there that they had that you feel is in addition to that, or is a change to that, let me know and we can look at it.
No, that was it. I just want to make sure it was
Okay.
on the radar, and if they're going back in, then that is
Yeah.
perfect. Cool.
Okay.
All right, what else I got here? Yeah, for the flashing beacons, I think honestly, you already requested the location of those, right? Just for info, yeah.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. The safe routes to schools, does that funding just cover from residents to the school, like walking along sidewalks, or does it also take into consideration walking to bus stops?
Which one are you referring to?
The safe routes to school kind of funding.
The funding itself. So yeah, the funding itself, it covers sidewalks and bike lanes in the walking zone of schools, basically. So that's in general what the funding is for. And if there's any other safety elements that you have, like we have a speed feedback sign project that we're hoping is going to reduce speeds adjacent to schools to help make it safer. Things along those nature. If it helps provide a safety benefit to children at schools, they tend to fund that as well.
Okay, so it is just mostly constrained to the geographic region around the school, or it takes into consideration, like they may walk away from their house to a bus stop, which then takes them to the school.
Yeah, we tend to look at the walk zones of the schools, is what we tend to look at, when we look at that program.
Tom?
Yeah. Tom?
One thing to add on to that. So the Bremerton School District has a transportation manager. I can't remember his title, but Marco DeChico, and we work hand in hand with him when we're trying to identify the scope of upcoming grants. I mean, we basically take the lead from him on what prioritization we should use in moving projects forward.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, I just had some, I should give the context first, but a few people ask about sidewalks to bus stops from their house, so I was just kind of curious there.
Jeff, can I
Yeah.
just chime in on this topic?
Yep.
So, yeah, this is something that's huge. Kids all over my district and other districts literally cannot walk to their bus stop. That's why this is a big passionate deal for me. Woman who has 2 kids at the end of Corbett at 15th. School bus stop is 200 foot away. Her kid cannot walk safely to it. It's been like, driven into, they have those big ditches there. Kid's been literally driven into the ditch. So people are driving their kids to school, which kind of is just rough on everyone. So I think Jeff's bringing up a really good topic, which is kids got to be able to walk to their school bus safely. And especially since in not rich areas, there's no childcare at home. So they're like the parent and the stroller and the little kids, they're all going towards the school bus stop. Okay, I'm stopping on this topic. I could go on and I won't. Good
point. The context Park Drive, which I now live on, so I've gotten questions from neighbors / constituents. Is there a map for that project, or I guess a lot of the general sidewalk projects? I know there are some of the bigger road projects, but I don't know where they're thinking of planning of putting the sidewalk exactly.
I think I can't recall if we have an overall map where all the sidewalk projects are. That would be something that I'd have to look into, but a map specifically of where the Park Drive sidewalk is going to be. We provided something to our archaeologists, so I can see if I can send that to you, so that you can have something to look at for where that's going to be. But it's not going to be adjacent to the road. It's going to be, we have to keep it off the roadway because there's some pretty massive trees right in through there. So it's going to snake into the park a little bit and around the trees right in through there. It's not going to be just on the side of the road right in through there. So.
Okay, cool. That was the big question, whether it was redoing the existing sidewalk on the one end or if it was on the park side end of it. Okay.
Yeah, it's on the park side end of it, and it's going to be going from the intersection, and it's going to be connecting up to the trail that the park has that dead ends right there, so you can have a connection from that trail dead end out to the sidewalk network at that intersection.
Okay, I think that I know you've got a ton going on, so don't worry about the exact map. That was the big question. Cool. That's it for me. All right. Thanks, Shane. That was a lot.
Okay.
Yes, you do. Okay, this all looks really good. Thank you. I'm just gonna sort of apologize in advance for being so tired and for using the word boring. I feel that was just really rude, and it's not what I think. I beg to be on this committee because I find all of this detail really fascinating. I've spent a big chunk of time at a funeral today, so it's making me exhausted. So please forgive me, and I promise I don't think that, and I will never say it again. Moving right along to transportation planning. The 2024 comprehensive plan update. Vicki, you have the next 3 items. Please feel free to use the way of Gunner.
Thank you. And I'll use also the way of our recent conversation. Number 1, 2, and 3 there are no current changes on those projects from the last time we spoke, meaning we are working on trying to get to those. Obviously, we have a deadline for the comprehensive plan. Those all plans will tie together. I can't wait to get started on them, but we're not there yet.
Well, that works great. Jeff, do you have any questions?
Nope, that's great.
Okay. Katie, you have the final two, the OEA Joint Compatibility Transportation Study. Please take it away.
Yeah, I will follow suit as well, and just say, you guys have recently gotten an update on the JCTP. So we've sent the consultant off with all of the feedback to do some analysis on a draft preferred alternative. And once they've completed that, in a couple of months, we'll be back doing more public outreach to show people what we've got. And then West Kitsap Way Planning Study. I am so pleased to tell you that it is scheduled up for the next council cycle of July 27th and August 3rd for the consultant contract. And then we can kick off that project. It's taken a lot of time to get that contract negotiated and reviewed through WashDOT and everything. So I'm very happy to move that to the next step and kick off that project. And that's it.
Rockin'. Jeff, do you have any questions, comments?
So 100-story parking garage, bulldoze the fountain park for it. All good. Thanks, Katie. That's
Hey,
great.
you're on record, so careful.
Well, he doesn't mean that it will actually be a height of 100 stories. It'll just be a building about which 100 stories are told.
There you go. Okay.
There are 100 stories in the naked tower. Thank you all very much. I really appreciate all of you pointing out like publicly available material. So because the website of the city of Bremerton can be a bit difficult to find stuff. So thank you for every time you tell us about different things that where it's just like, it's on the website and here's how to get there. So thank you. That gives us and the public a chance to educate ourselves. I would talk more, but I have no desire to. Does anyone have any other? Hillary, shoot. I'm sorry. Hillary, please go ahead.
I just wanted to know if you wanted to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Desperately. I move that we approve the minutes of the meeting of June 20th.
21st.
21st, 2022. Second,
Second.
any objections? So moved. Thank you, Hillary. Is there anything else we're missing?
I just had one last emergent item, and I could talk offline to somebody. There's been trying to coordinate a water fountain down Whitey Dempstead Park, and I just wanted to quickly check if that was something that's at all feasible to consider for funding from the city, or if it has to require private funds, which I think is currently the plan.
So yeah, I just talked to Jeff Bellovato about that recently. As far as funding goes, I think that the private funds were offered. So you want to know if we would just bypass the private funds and move that forward as a city project and just do it?
Yeah, I think my current understanding is Parks and Public Works has agreed to install it if the private funding comes up for it. And I just wanted to, and if that's correct, I wanted to see if there was the possibility of either a matching or a cost share or something there from city funds.
Well, I know we were going to do the install for nothing, but let me get back with you. I'll talk to the mayor about that.
Perfect.
Mhm.
Just
And
curious.
it's one of those, we were talking about dog parks earlier. It's going to be one of those drinking fountains with a little dog bowl on it. So
Yes, yeah, on the bottom. So
yeah.
This is a fountain for dogs?
And
People and dogs.
Okay. Okay.
Or humans want to pretend to be dogs. I don't know. Yeah.
Or the humans who want to get in touch with their inner dog. Okay.
All right, that's it.
Are you sure? Yeah, Ned, over to you.
Good night.
Yes, hang on. I have to read from the invisible script.
Oh,
For the foreseeable future, we will still be in 2020. And we will continue to have meetings remotely, but with the faint, sweet whiff of hope that they might be a bit shorter. Thank you all, and have a great evening.
good night.
Thank you all.
Hydrated.